Today we are going to start with chapter 1, Decline of Mughal Empire from 1707 to 1857. When we deal with the decline of Mughal Empire, the first question which comes in our mind that 18th century India was depicted as a dark age or age of chaos. Why was it called so? Or what led to the conflict between the Mughals and the Britishers? These two empires sandwiched between themselves because the Britishers initially came to do trade, but eventually they realized that if they involve in politics, they will earn more money and they will have no pressure to have grant of something, some trade, some agreements. So it will help them more to do trade. Now the second question is that why is Britishers or why 18th century India is termed as a dark age or age of chaos, or was it really so, or is it just said like this? So when we really study about it, it is found that 18th century India was not really a dark age because there were regional powers which were gaining strength. They were emerging. When we see that after the decline of Mughal Empire, the Marathas, the Sikhs, the Jats, or the different regional territories, they had emerged. So how can you say that it was dead? Yeah, it was weak. And even there were trade relations with other countries. Even Britishers were doing trade with us, and trade had more emerged during this time. It was a attractive destination for European tradings, and Africans were also coming to do trade, whether it was of spices and other things. So India was not yet economically backward regions. Whether it must be noted that Europe and North America were not as rich as they became in the 19th and the 20th century. When they came to India, they started doing trade with us, they started draining our wealth, our resources, and that eventually led them become economically stronger by draining our wealth. All these potentialities still lay in the womb of the future. Perhaps that depiction of a dark age is suited in a certain way that Indian history highlighted as a British achievement. It is said that it is written in that way that it looks that British did something very good to us, and they came, they ruled us, and that led to reunification of India. But it is not really so. Now, 18th century of Indian history is divided into three parts. The first part of the 18th century, or the first half of the 18th century, is termed as a decline of Mughal Empire. In the middle decades of the 18th century, there was rise of autonomous states like Hyderabad, Awadh, Bengal, Jat, Afghan, Sikhs, Marathas, Rajputs, these. And in the second half of the 18th century, we see that there was rise of British supremacy. They had gained their political power or toehold in the entire regions of India. Now, the decline of Mughal Empire, when we deal with it, the first ruler which comes in our mind is Aurangzeb. What were the policies of Aurangzeb which led to the decline of Mughal Empire? It is an important question also in your examination. So the first policy of his was non-tolerant policy towards Hindu or Sikhs, Marathas, because he was very much about to his religion. He didn't like other religion, and he was very anti to other religion. His social religious policies were a major cause for the decline because he was always in conflict with other regions, and his territory was so big. He has captured almost a large number of territories in India, and he was not able to keep eye check on every territory. It is not possible. So one or time or another there was eventually a fight with other regions, and he had to fight. These lead to economically weakening the center. The center was becoming weaker and weaker with the time. When we see that Maratha, they had a conflict. Aurangzeb had a conflict with Marathas also, and Marathas were very much trained in the guerrilla warfare. So when the Marathas fight with the Aurangzeb, when Aurangzeb decided to fight with Maratha, he lost the war. Why he lost the war? Because they were not equipped how to fight the guerrilla warfare. In the Deccan War, that is called Deccan War, is one of the reasons that led to the decline of Mughal Empire, and Aurangzeb का जो reign था वो फिर finally we see that it gets over. This 50 years of Aurangzeb death, after the 50 years of Aurangzeb death, we see that Mughal Empire totally degenerated because the later Mughals who came, they were not economically or strong enough to rule the states, because there were many nobles who always used to shake hands with the Britishers, and they used to wage wars. And of course, when you share, when the your internal problems are there and you're not able to solve them, and you go to fight, if the enemy is in your house only, then of course you're going to lose the battle. So it happened, they lost the battle of Plassey, battle of Buxar. These things we see. Now let's start with later Mughals from 1707 to 1857 we are going to cover. Aurangzeb death happened in 1707 at the age of 89, and he had three sons. They all single war of succession. The eldest brother's name was Prince Muzam, who defeated and killed the other two sons, whose name was Muhammad Azam and Jaju in 1707 only, and Kambaksh near Hyderabad. So two sons, there were three sons. The one who was the elder brother, Prince Muzam, he ruled after Aurangzeb, and other two sons were killed by Muzam, the eldest brother. So he killed whom? Azam and Kambaksh. She killed them. Now Bahadur Shah I, Muzam Shah Alam, who was the eldest brother, was also known as the Bahadur Shah I. Bahadur Shah I, who ruled from 1707 to 12, is also known as Shah Alam I. He was an elderly man of 65 years old, but he was a very learned and a very narrow-minded policies of Aurangzeb. He reversed that. The policies of anti-social, religion. He reversed those policies, and he adopted a more tolerant attitude towards the Hindus as well as the Sikhs. There were no destruction of temple during his reign. He was like a statesmanship, or he adopted more a pacific policy. In general, we can say that. When it comes to Marathas, what were his relations with the Marathas? So Bahadur Shah allowed Maratha Prince Shahu, who was held as a captive since 1689, to go back to Maharashtra. So he was from long time a captive of Mughal Empire. So he was now released. When it comes to his relations with the Rajputs, he made many peace treaties with Rajput, and he made many Rajput chiefs and confirmed in their states, so that it looks that there's a friendly relationship with them. When it comes to relationship with Jats and Bundelas, he made peace with Chief Jats Juraman and Bundelas also. He joined him in campaign against the Banda Bahadur. When it comes to his relations with Sikh, Bahadur Shah tried to make peace with rebellious Sikhs by giving Guru Gobind Singh high mansab. After the death of Guru, the Sikh once again raised a revolt under the leadership of Banda Bahadur and the rebel, but he defeated Banda Bahadur at Lohargarh, and there was a fort built by Guru Gobind Singh at the foothills of Himalayas. There only he defeated him and he captured it, but later it was again recovered. However, Bahadur Shah had a very lavishly granted jagirs and promotions. That led to the deterioration of his administration, because when you give promotions who are not capable or not merit, so that will eventually lead to the deterioration of your administration. That's why he was also known as a Shahi Bekhavar, headless king. His administrative capability of taking decisions was not as good. By Khafi Khan, he died in 1712. So when did Bahadur Shah I or Muzam Shah Alam I, who was also known as Shah Alam I, died? In 1712 he died. After Bahadur Shah, we see that Zahinder Shah, who was the son of Bahadur Shah, ruled from 1712 to 1713. When in 1712 Bahadur Shah died, there was a war of succession that broke out among his four sons of Bahadur Shah, and it was such an indecent haste of grabbing the throne that they fought among themselves, and they left the body of their father Bahadur Shah's dead body for a month. They did not even bury the body, and they were just engaged in fighting the war. The struggle of succession, one of the less able sons, Zahinder Shah, emerged victorious, and he emerged victorious because of a powerful noble, Zulfikar Khan, who was from the Irani party. He was a Shia ruler, Shia noble. So after Bahadur Shah, we see that there were the nobles who were rich or were powerful. They used to support who were less abled, and they were the nobles who helped them. They were the one who mainly used to rule, or mainly used to take the important decisions of the state, and they were just the dictators. So Zahinder Shah was a degenerated princely who was mainly devoted to pleasure. His administration was in the hands of extremely capable Zulfikar Khan, who was a noble with whom support he became the noble of the Mughal Empire after his father. Now, Zulfikar Khan became the Wazir or the Prime Minister of the Mughal Empire, and Zulfikar Khan believed that it is important to establish a friendly relations with the Rajput Rajas and the Maratha Sardars. So he also adopted a pacific policy, or we can say that a tolerant attitude towards the Hindus. And he was also one who reversed the policies of Aurangzeb. He was against his policies. When we see about his relations with the Marathas, Zulfikar Khan confirmed that the agreement reached between the deputy of Deccan, Daud Khan Pani, and Shah in 1711, whereby the Marathas were granted Chauth and Sardesh Mukhi of the Deccan on the condition that these collections would be made by Mughal officers and then handed over to the Marathas. So Marathas had a conditions that the Chauth or Sardesh Mukhis which were collected, they were collected by the Mughal officers and they were kept by them only in the Maratha regions also which was taken. Whereas the tax was a very important source of income at that time. So they raised the question and this was solved by Zahinder Shah or noble Zulfikar Khan. He said that okay, we will allow you to take tax, but the tax collections will be done by the Mughal officers and then it will be handed over to you. The relations of his with Rajputs, Jai Singh II or of Amber was also good. He appointed him as a governor of Malwa, and Maharaja Ajit Singh also of Marwar was appointed governor of Gujarat. When we see his relations with Jat and Bundela Sikhs, Zulfikar Khan contributed to pacific Churman Jat and Chhatrasal Bundelas. He continued to suppress the Sikh. He also abolished the hated Jizya tax. Jizya tax was a pilgrimage tax. When the Hindus used to go and visit a temple, they had to pay the sum of money. That was tax. Zulfikar Khan had done many improvement in the administration. His empire was checking the reckless growth of Jagirs and officers, but he also gave a Todarmal land revenue settlement that was given by Todarmal, and he introduced a new tax collection policy that was a revenue farming or Izara system. That was a not good system at all, whereby the government established a contact with revenue farmers and the middlemen who paid the governors a fixed amount of money, while they were free to extract whatever they could from the peasants, leading to increased oppositions on the peasantry. So thing was that in Izara system, that he introduced Izara system and there were middlemen who used to collect money from the peasants. It was not now the heads who were directly collecting the money from the peasant, it was the middlemen. So now middlemen were said that you have to collect 10 rupees. Now they were collecting 20 rupees from the farmers and they were suppressing. Now the suppression had increased more on the peasants. So it is not considered a good policy which was introduced by the Zulfikar Khan. Now comes the Farrukh Siyar. Farrukh Siyar came to power with the help of Sayyid brother. He was also a noble. Sayyid brother, there were two Sayyid brothers. One was Abdullah Khan and one was Husn Ali Khan Baru, who came to be known as the kingmakers. As a token of gratitude, Farrukh Siyar made Abdullah Khan as his wazir and Husn Ali Khan as Mir Bakshi. Farrukh Siyar was not a capable ruler and a coward himself. He was worthless flatterers and he used to take advantages of the two brothers as he acquired the positions. To acquire the positions, he mainly took the advantages of the two brothers. Sayyid brothers adopted a pacific policy and a tolerant attitude towards the Hindus. He believed that India could be harmoniously ruled only when the Hindu chiefs and the nobles with the Muslims governor rule together. He abolished the Jizya system, that is the pilgrimage tax which was collected, and he even continued to collect conciliate with the Marathas and Rajput Jats while suppressing the Sikh. He was also suppressing the Sikhs, but he had a very pacific policy towards the others. Farrukh Siyar's reign, we saw that there was a victory of Mughal over the Sikh and the Sikh leader Banda Bahadur. He was taken as a prisoner at Gurdaspur and later he was executed at Delhi in 19 June 1716. But after some time, Farrukh Siyar had suffered from a disease. In 1714, we see that William Hamilton, he was a surgeon of a British East India Company. He comes and successfully secured Farrukh Siyar from a disease that was named swelling in the groin. After his successful treatment, he became very happy, and Farrukhsiyar finally arranged his marriage to the daughter Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur, which had been delayed because of his illness. In the reward of the company, the emperor issued a farman, a royal order that is called as Farman of 1717, which granted East India Company many trading privileges because he was very happy. East India Company was the one who sent William Hamilton, and he got second life after that. So in happiness, he gave Farman of 1717. Headless, but after this, headlessly granting the British East India Company this Farman, including the exemption from custom duties and trade through Bengal, the provision of Farman became a source of perpetual conflict between the Bengal Nawabs and the English Company. Soon Farrukhsiyar wanted to exercise his own authority and conspired to get away with the Sayyid brothers, who were the one who made him the empire. Sayyid brothers were also very clever. He understood everything, and with the help of Peshwa Balaji Vishwanath, they dethroned the emperor and blinded him and killed him. It was the first time in the Mughal history that an emperor was killed by his nobles. After the execution of Farrukhsiyar, the Sayyid brother raised the throne in the quick succession of two young princes, that is Rafi-ud-Darjat and Rafi-ud-Dawla. Now, when the Sayyid brothers killed Farrukhsiyar, the two brothers were there, Rafi-ud-Darjat and Rafi-ud-Dawla. They both were also not well due to consumption of wines and other things. They were suffering from tuberculosis. So Rafi-ud-Darjat ruled from 1719 April to June 19. Only 2 months he ruled. Whereas Rafi-ud-Dawla also ruled from 1719 June to September 19. So he also ruled for 2 to 3 months only. So it was a very short period rule made by them. The kingmaker now made 18 years old Roshan Akhtar as a new noble, better known as Muhammad Shah. Muhammad Shah is also known by many names that we will see now. Sayyid brothers did not had a very good relations with his friends of Muhammad Shah or with Muhammad Shah or the head of Nazim ul Mulk. He had not a very good relations with them. So they were jealous of his growing powers of the brothers. Moreover, the murder of Farrukhsiyar has also frightened many of the nobles because it was the first time that a Mughal emperor was killed. So Muhammad Shah too desired to free himself with these Sayyid brothers. They made a plan and they killed them in 1720 with the help of a powerful noble whose name was Nizam ul Mulk. His full name was Kumar Uddin Siddiqui Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jahan. After the fall of Sayyid brothers, Muhammad Shah ruled for a very long period of nearly 30 years. It was a long rule of 30 years. He was probably the last chance to save the empire. Mughal rule was still in the hands of an esteemed Mughal army and was still forced to reckon with the Maratha Sardars who were still confined to the south of the Rajputs who were loyal to them. There was a strong and far-sighted ruler might have saved the situation, but Muhammad was not the man of the moment. Even though he ruled for 30 years, he was not able to save his empire because he was mostly involved in bad things. Like he was a very weak-minded, frivolous ruler. He is also known as Muhammad Shah Rangila because he was very much fond of wine and women. That led to the fall of Mughal Empire. After the fall of Sayyid brothers, he fell into the clutches of a dancing girl whose name was Koki Jiu and in reach of Hafiz Khidmatgar Khan. In this way, Muhammad Shah's reign initiated an irreversible decline of Mughal Empire and physical breakup of the empire now had begun. Powerful nobles were there now began to carve out semi-independent states like Nizam ul Mulk in Hyderabad, Murshid Kulib Khan in Bengal, Sadat Khan in Awadh carved out their autonomous state. Now Marathas began their northern experience and in 1737 Baji Rao I raided Delhi and territories of the empire. In 1739 we see Nadir Shah invaded India. There was a foreign invasion also. Defeated the Mughals in the Battle of Karnal and annexed strategic important areas where the Indus including Kabul to the Persian Empire and India once again became vulnerable to the attacks of Northwest. Soon after the assassination of Nadir Shah in 1747, we see that Ahmad Shah Abdali was chosen as a king of Afghanistan between 1748 and 1767. Abdali now had invaded and plundered the Mughal Empire 7 times. beginning from the first invasion in 1748 during the reign of Muhammad Shah. Now the next ruler who comes is the Ahmad Shah, who ruled from 1748 to 1754. Muhammad Shah's successor Ahmad Shah was born of Uddambai. He was a dancing girl. She was a dancing girl. Uddambai was a dancing girl, and he was a weak and left the state affairs in the hands of his mother Uddambai only. The Queen of Mother, titled Qibla-e-Alam, was a poor intellect and ruled with the help of her paramour, Saved Khan, a notorious intriguer. She was not a very powerful ruler. During Ahmad Shah reign, Ahmad Shah Abdali invaded India twice. So, in 1749 and in 1752, two times India was invaded in his reign. Ahmad Shah Abdali invaded India in the reign of Uddambai, because she was not a very powerful ruler. She was not able to march up to it. Abdali, by surrendering Punjab and Multan, appeased Abdali. He gave Multan and Punjab in the sake of Delhi, and both the reigns were captured by Ahmad Shah Abdali now. Ghazi Uddin Khan Firoz Jung in 1752 received the title Amir ul Umar, Noble of Nobles, and Imad ul Mulk by Mughal Emperor Ahmad Shah. Now they sought an alliance. Before they could be done, they sought an alliance. Firoz Jung III sought an alliance with Maratha chiefs Sadishav Rao Bhau. Together they blinded and deposed Ahmad Shah in 1754, who raised as a puppet ruler by Alamgir III to the throne, and Imad Mulk now became new Wazir and Kingmaker. So they had defeated and killed Ahmad Shah now, and the new ruler was Alamgir II, or who was also known as Azizuddin. After defeating Ahmad Shah or Imad ul Mulk, now raised Azizuddin, who started to rule the throne and began his reign as Alamgir II. It was during his reign that we see that there was a battle of Plassey fought on 23rd June 1757. During his reign, Ahmad Shah Abdali invaded India and plundered Delhi in 1757 also. The same year, Imad invited the Marathas to invade Delhi in order to drive out Afghans and the Rohillas. According in March 1758, a massive force of Maratha led by Raghunath Rao appeared to Delhi and defeated the Afghan garrisons at Delhi, expelled Nazib over Punjab, occupying the Lahore regions. So there was a big fight going on in Bengal, or where if we see that he was calling other state rulers to invade Delhi so that the rule of Afghans and Rohillas could be driven off. In November 1759, we see that Wazir Imad ul Mulk got the emperor murdered and raised to the throne his puppet Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan III now. So again, Wazir Imad ul Mulk was even killed, and a new ruler came to rule, that was Shah Jahan III. Shah Jahan III, or Muhin ul Millat, he regained the Mughal Empire for a very brief period, for a very short period of 1 year, and he was the son of the eldest of Muhammad Kam Baksh, who was the youngest son of Aurangzeb also. He was placed on the Mughal throne in December. In 1759, a puppet rule of Wazir Imad ul Mulk, he was deposed by Maratha chief. Now again, Shah Alam II, or Ali Gohar, comes to rule from 1760 to 1806. He ruled for this much period. Northern India was swept by Marathas led by Sadisha Bhau, who deposed Shah Jahan III and installed Ali Gohar now, the son of Alamgir II, as a rightful emperor of the Maratha suzerainty. Ali Gohar took the title of Shah Jahan II. He was the main man of some ability and courage also, because in his empire, or in his reign, we see some redemptions happened. His reign saw two decisive battles: the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761 and Battle of Buxar in 1764. In 1761, after the Battle of Panipat and before leaving Delhi, Ahmad Shah Abdali named Shah Alam II as Emperor of Nazib ul Dawla as Mir Bakshi. Abdali had lastly invaded India in 1767. His invasion has hastened the downfall of the Mughal Empire due to regular invasions that led to creation of anarchy and confusion all around. The emperor of Shah Alam II was not allowed to enter Delhi for 12 years because the Delhi was invaded by Ahmad Shah Abdali, and now after Ahmad Shah Abdali invaded Delhi, he made the new ruler who was named as Najeeb-ud-Dawla. Now Najeeb-ud-Dawla was made Mir Bakshi, and he didn't allow Ahmad Shah Abdali, Ali Gauhar or Shah Alam II to come Delhi. For 12 years he didn't come to Delhi until he was escorted to a fugitive Mughal empire. He was also known as a fugitive Mughal empire who remained outside for exile for 12 years. During his absence, Rohilla leaders Najeeb-ud-Dawla and later his son Zabit Khan and grandson Ghulam Qadir exercised an undisputed power at Delhi. In 1764, we see that Shah Alam II joins hands with Mir Qasim of Bengal and Shuja-ud-Dawla of Awadh, and he did Battle of Buxar against East India Company. But he was defeated in the Buxar. In the Mughal Empire signed a treaty of Allahabad in 1765, which was not a good treaty at all. In this, they had to only pay the sum of money for fighting the war of the Britishers also. The amount of money they had invested, and a sum of revenue was collected annually also. There were many treaties signed by them which gave them trading privileges also. So it was not a good treaty at all. The emperor raised in the fort of Allahabad for the next 6 years as a virtue of prisoners of the English. In 1771, we see that Maratha under the Mahadi Sindhe or Scindia returned to northern India and captured Delhi and reinstalled Shah Alam II at the Delhi throne. During 1772 to 1773, we see that Mughals supported Marathas and led to expedition against the Rohillas leader Zabit Khan, who was earlier appointed as a Mir Bakshi of Shah Alam II. But he had conspired against Shah Alam II only, and he had hands with Abdali, and then he was not allowed to, Shah Alam II was not allowed to enter Delhi for 12 years. He was in exile. So this was not good thing at all. We see that he took possession of royal places, deposed Shah Alam II, and Ruthless blinded him. Shah Alam II is also referred to as blind Mughal because he was blinded by Ghulam Qadir, and Mahadija Sindhya, however, hunted Ghulam Qadir down and blinded Shah Alam and was resorted and killed. So Ghulam Qadir blinded Shah Alam II, and Shah Alam II was blinded by whom? Mahadij Sindhya. So it was one to another. Delhi was recaptured by English after defeating Daulat Rao Sindhya, and the blinded Mughal emperor once again accepted as a protection of the British. Like this, the rule was going from one hand to another. It was not a stable government at all. Sultan-e-Shah Alam az-Dilta Palam, meaning the king of Shah Alam, is from Delhi to Palam. Palam being a suburb of Delhi, Shah Alam II also authored his own divan of poems, also known as pen name Aftab. He has written a book. Shah Alam II wrote a book whose name was Shah Alam II wrote a book, that name was Divan of Poems. It was Aftab. Now comes the Akbar Shah II, who ruled from 1806 to 37. After the death of Shah Alam II, his son succeeded as Akbar II. Akbar, the penultimate Mughal emperor of India, gave the title Raja. Who gave title of Raja to Ram Mohan Roy? He was Akbar Shah II who gave the title to Raja to Ram Mohan Roy, and sent him to England to seek and raise the pension. In 1835, the East India Company stopped calling itself a subject of a Mughal empire and discontinued issuing coins in his name and deleting Persian lines of company coins to his effect. So now there were no more printing of his names on the coins also. It had stopped. Now comes the Bahadur Shah II or Bahadur Shah Zafar, who ruled from 1837 to 1857. After the death of Akbar II, Bahadur Shah II became the Mughal emperor. He was fond of poetry and was known as the title of Zafar. During the revolt of 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar proclaimed the Mughal emperor of India by the rebels. So during revolt of 1857 also, because Mughal condition was not good, but in revolt of 1857, Bahadur Shah was proclaimed as an emperor of India. It was said that he will be the emperor of India, and because he was very much fond of poetry, his title was also given as Zafar. Then we see that he was because he participated in the revolt of 1857, he was captured after the revolt of 1857 and he was deported to Rangoon, where he died in November 1862. In the long term of Mughal Empire came to an end on 1st November 1858 with the declaration of Queen Victoria. The most important consequence of the decline of the Mughal Empire was that it enabled the British to conquer India and push it into a very vortex of colonial exploitation for nearly 200 years. Now there was complete decline of the Mughal Empire. In the next, we will see it was the later Mughals we have seen. What were the causes of later Mughals, or what were their administrative, economic, or cultural practices which they did that led to the decline. Now, in the gist, we will see that what were the causes of the decline of Mughal Empire, whether it was internal weakness, Aurangzeb misguided policy, weak successors, war of succession of role makers, nature of Mughal states, degeneration of Mughal nobility. These we are going to see in the next lecture. Thank you everyone. Please like, share and subscribe my channel.